Jeff, onto the professional game. Virat Kohli has stood down as India's T20 captain and the RCB captain as of the end of the T20 World Cup and this current IPL respectively, which makes a lot of sense. This is a guy who's been captaining all three formats and his IPL franchise forever, and now he gets the chance to just focus on one-day cricket and test cricket. And as Dan Brettig noted, it's very different when you're hosting a World Cup at home. He'll be doing that, or I suppose at the moment, kind of, sort of, in the UAE, but then the one-day World Cup in 2023, which is going to be just a gigantic tournament with Kohli in charge at home, as was the case for Dhoni back in 2011. And he gets the chance just when, I suppose, his test games just plateaued a little bit, to find a way to find just a little bit more time in his incredibly busy schedule. It seems like a very sensible decision.
I like it from Kohli because the way he's perceived is that he's this giant ego who couldn't stand to let anybody else be in charge of things. You know, had to run everything, had to have the final say in how everything goes. And you know, this indicates that's, you know, even if that was the case at one point, it's not the case anymore. He's done those jobs for long enough. Frankly, captaining an IPL team seems like an absolutely bananas sort of enterprise. If you're captaining an IPL side, you are tasked with pretty much building the team. You know, you have a huge amount of input into the kind of players you get, the kind of style you play, the tactical approach. I mean, it's not just the on-field stuff. It's a year-round job, really, captaining an IPL side, let alone trying to captain the biggest cricket country in the world in all three formats. It is crazy that he's been as successful as he has, basically, over the 14 years that he's been playing international cricket. So, yeah, I really like the move because, as you say, there's the dip. You know, it's not a terrible dip. And the interesting thing is that T20 internationals have been his best format for India over the last couple of years, while he's been not raking in runs in 50-over or test versions. He's been making a lot of 50s and unbeaten sort of 80s and 90s and so on for the T20 side, which have sort of offset his other, you know, less good numbers. But it is notable. I mean, you know, a lot of people are on this train of how long has it been since Kohli's made 100 now, which is interesting because I feel like I've been watching it since day one because I was interested in his overall count. He's got 70 international hundreds, but he had that number a couple of years ago and he was making an average of 6 or 7 international hundreds a year across his whole career. So when he stopped doing that, even for a period of a few months, it seemed really noticeable. And now that it's got to a couple of years, it's particularly noticeable. So, you know, whether this turns that around a bit, I mean, it can't hurt, basically, to give him a little bit more time to concentrate on his own game, even though captaining your country in one-day international and test cricket is not a small job.
Yeah, and there's so much in this, isn't there? But, I mean, he's not going anywhere as a player. And you hear this from the best captains, don't you, that their principal job is to bat, really. He's still going to be there in all three formats for India. He's still going to be their most important player, their barometer, if you like. He's still going to be at the RCB. He's got, obviously, deep links not only to the club on the field, but off the field as well. So not much will change, I suppose, as the guy, you know, in the middle of the ground batting. It's just that he removes that, as you say, that considerable responsibility in IPL land, which is such an intense experience to begin with. And then for T20 internationals, it's I suppose, a move that is a nod towards the future as well, which is what a good leader should be doing, succession planning. It's all good and well to have Kohli leading all three formats, but this does mean that they can look to generation next with that T20 side, as other countries have done in the past, and use it as a little bit of a nursery for, I mean, remembering we're backdating it.
You'd be surprised if it wasn't Rohit Sharma, though, who takes over.
Well, maybe so. But in terms of who Rohit might have with him in his leadership group, for example, and the fact that they are having a World Cup in the format before he moves along, and Kohli will be there in Australia playing in that team the year after. So, yeah, it feels like the timing's perfect, and I wouldn't be surprised if it corresponds and correlates, rather, with a very productive period for Kohli, the batter. And let's hope so, because, Jeff, I mean, we thought he would cruise to 100 international centuries, and maybe he still will, but that looks, perhaps less certain than it might have a couple of years ago. As for the IPL, which had its restart yesterday, The Chennai Super Kings beat the Mumbai Indians by 20 runs. Jeff, there was a bit of a misfire at the start in terms of the way
bizarre.
There were
Bizarre
wickets everywhere
card.
until it was. Yeah, it took a long time to settle down. Put it that way.
Well, 5 of the top 6 made 7 runs between them. And then the other one, the standout, Gaikwad makes 88 from 58 balls opening the batting. Not just that, but pulls out the sweep shot against Jasprit Bumrah, sweeps him for 6, sweeps Trent Boult for 6, which is, a little less difficult, I suppose. Ben Stokes did that pretty effectively. Bolt's not as quick, but still a very good T20 bowler. But the way that Bumrah was bowling through the Test series, he's been in terrific form for about 4 years straight. But there aren't a lot of players playing the sweep shot against Jasprit Bumrah, put it that way. And it ended up being a match-winning hand because he got them a total they were able to defend.
Yeah, and Bravo making, was it 23 and 9 balls? And I think Tim Wigmore pointed out this morning, Bravo's batting number 9 in the West Indies World Cup team. So, it's a bit of a reminder that they are lurking, the West Indies, in that big tournament coming up in about a month from now. KKR play RCB in a game that's starting about an hour after we're recording, so we'll have Glenn Maxwell in action there. One of 13 Australians playing in this tournament. 7 of whom will remain in the UAE for the World Cup. So you got Maxwell, Christian, Warner, Stephen Smith, Marcus Stoinis, Josh Hazlewood, Nathan Ellis, and then those who aren't in the World Cup squad, Moses Henriquez, Chris Lynn, Nathan Coulter-Nile, Ben Cutting, Tim David, who, where he fits in exactly is unclear, but let's call him an Australian for the purpose of the exercise. Ben Dorshus, and I think that's it. Yeah. But still, there's a lot out. Even though a number of them said no, it's not as though there's not a strong Australian influence in this IPL.
I love that Tim David is having such a good time. At a time when a lot of cricketers are sitting out, deciding not to get involved and so on. Tim David's having the time of his life. The guy with 2 first names, doesn't need a last name to stand out. He's in England playing in the 100. He's playing county cricket. He's in the IPL. He's everywhere. He's the greatest Singaporean player going around the circuit at the moment. And everything seems to be working for him. He's playing well wherever he goes. And I don't know, it's lovely to see there are still those stories, those possibilities from time to time or place to place that someone can get a go in a domestic T20 comp, make a splash in the Big Bash or the Caribbean Premier League or whatever it is, and suddenly they've got themselves a career.